all non-Muslims. Okay? And for non-Muslims, you see this is what Quran is teaching. So the Muslims have to kill all non-Muslims. I challenge anyone. Just show me a passage from the Quran saying that you have to kill Christians because they are Christians. Or you have to kill Jews because they are Jews. When you look at the passage, the whole passage, you'll see that, right, not in isolation. This is the passage. Fight in God's cause. As I said, there is war in Islam. Fight in God's cause against those who fight against you. If someone attacks you, then you have to attack back. Then you have to defend yourself. Okay? So you cannot initiate the fight. You cannot initiate the battle. If someone attacks you first, then you have to defend yourself. But do not exceed the bounds set by God. Okay? There are certain things that you cannot do, even on the battlefield. In the hadith, there are these, for example, ladies coming to help the soldier, the pagans, the idolaters, non-Muslims, the unbelievers. They are coming to the battlefield for nursing or for cooking. They are not soldiers, but you cannot kill them because they are not combatants, they are not fighters. They are just helping the soldiers. Okay? Just an example. So do not fight against them in the vicinities of the sacred mosque. You saw the mosque, you saw the cubic building. This is called the sacred area around the Mecca. And within that, this is called the sacred zone or the forbidden zone. You cannot kill a person, you cannot fight, you cannot kill an animal, as I said, remember? But if those pagans, if those idolaters, if they fight you within that zone, within that sacred zone, you can fight back. And you can kill them wherever you find them within that zone. You see the historical context? So that's why, again, where and how and why this passage was revealed. And there is a very depth Quranic science, what's called the Asbab al-Nuzul, the circumstances of revelation. The circumstances of revelation. Without knowing that, you cannot interpret a passage, you cannot translate a passage and say that this is what it means. Again, the cherry picking, this is what people do. Okay. Terrorism, again, as I said, when you look at the Quran is using the term irhab, terrorizing people. And according to the Quran, that's a crime. Remember what he said, the Muslim guy, the Muslim thinker, the Turkish religious scholar? He said it's a crime. Terrorism, it's a crime against humanity, against the community, against the Creator. It has no rule. So that's why it's not war, okay? I said there is war in Islam, but there are certain guidelines that you have to follow. There are certain things that you cannot do. Terrorism, it has no rule. It's total anarchy and disorder. And terrorism does not mean a means of Islamic goal. There are these people who believe that when they kill a non-Muslim, they will be going to heaven. Okay. But if the result, if it's virtuous, if the ending goal, if it's virtuous, the means that you have, the techniques that you use, the path that you take must be virtuous too. So you cannot kill, you cannot go to heaven by killing innocent people. Again, that sanctity of life is very important in Islam. I don't know whether I mentioned this or not. I don't know what you have. Okay, this is the last one I believe, suicide, related to that. So that's why suicide is absolutely forbidden. Taking the life is absolutely forbidden. Again, if you are on the battlefield, if you are defending yourself, that's another issue. But you cannot kill yourself, you cannot commit suicide. Okay? Because that body is sacred, Islamically speaking, not just the spirit, not just the soul, but the body is sacred. There is this idea of the mirror, the notion of mirror. Every creature, every living being, whether human, whether animal, whether plants, whether jinns, whether angels, they are mirrors. They are the mirrors that reflect the manifestations of the names and attributes of God. And the human beings, they are the most beautiful and the brightest mirror according to that understanding. Especially the face, and this is something that the Muslim scholars are speaking of. The face, they say there are at least 70 different manifestations of the names and attributes of God created in God's image, remember? So that's why you cannot hit the face. The boxing is absolutely forbidden. Yes, we have this Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, and Mike Tyson. But the Orthodox traditional Islam speaking, you cannot hit the face. You cannot harm the body. That's why there is no cremation in Islam. That's why there is no musla, the mutilation of the corpse. You cannot, you have to be respectful to the body, the human body. Another example. Again, even some Muslims may not agree with this, but they might say, that's too far, they might say, the Muslims, okay? So you have to take care of your body, okay? Against the body being the temple, right, the temple. So you are driving, you are in the car, you didn't buckle up, you didn't follow the rules, you didn't stop at the stop sign, and you had an accident, and you died, you are going to hell. Yes. Because you didn't follow, you didn't take care of yourself, you didn't take care of your body, you didn't follow the rules. That's considered suicide. Okay. It's winter, it's freezing outside. You might say, I know that nothing would happen to me. I had a short sleeve, right, freezing. And you didn't take the medicine, you didn't take the vitamins, you didn't go to the doctor or such and such. You got sick. That's considered a sin. You are not taking care of your body. So you see how sacred this body is. So that's why you have to be respectful towards that body. Again, any body, human body. Doesn't have to be a body of Muslim. These are the things I think, I want to say. Yep, that's it. Now questions. It says at the end. Yeah. It's 4, 13, 15, 16, yes.
Here we go again.
Yes.
I couldn't wait for you to get finished because I wanted to talk about cherry picking. And then I saw the sign up on the bulletin board there, cherry picking.
Yes.
One of the last quotes you had from the Quran was 5:69.
Okay, what does it say?
Those who believe, Jews, Christians, whoever believes in God in the last day.
Yes, I remember. Okay. Yes, I remember.
All you have to go is 2 more verses down.
Okay, what does it say?
It said, they disbelieve those who say God is the third of 3, but there is no deity except the one God. If they do not refrain from what they say, a painful torment will befall them. Mm-hmm. So it only takes 2 verses to go from the Jews and the Christians are okay to that they're not okay.
That Trinity is a big problem, as I said. The Tawheed, the oneness of God, that's the core of Islam. So how you understand the God? Do you see God as one person, one entity, or do you see God as in 3 persona?
God the Father and the Son, and the
Son,
Holy Spirit.
yes, the Holy Spirit. It's against a debatable issue among Muslims. So when you speak with a Muslim, you have to tell them what you mean by the Trinity.
By disbelief?
By the Trinity. What do you mean by the Trinity? You have to explain this to the Muslims. Okay?
I don't follow, but I don't hear what
I think he's saying that we as the Christians believe the Trinity as one God.
Yes.
Okay, and he is saying that because we believe it as one God, we have similarity.
Yes.
Okay, that's not the way I understood the Quran at all. It's not the way I understood the way Muslims look at Christians at all.
Not all Muslims. Again, as I said, there are Muslims who might say, you believe in the 3 gods. Yes.
Yeah, that's what they tell us. We believe in 3 gods.
There are some Muslims who believe that you believe in the 3 gods. They say this. So that's why you won't be able to go to heaven. They say this.
That might be the difference between Methodists and Lutherans. We do have different foundations.
But he's saying believing in 3 is okay?
No.
I'm not saying that. No.
You as a Lutheran believe in one God.
Yes.
He is saying that you, as a Lutheran, believe in one God.
Because I read this book a year and a half ago, and I thought the disparity between those two verses, only 2 verses apart, I remember 2 years later when you put it up on the board.
That's just the translation that you read. There are more than 50 different English translations of the Quran, original English translation of the Quran, and it's highly recommended for non-Arab speaking Muslims not to read the translation but to read the commentary of the Quran. Okay? Again, there are, it's a very rich language, the Arabic itself. Okay? There are passages and there are very unclear, ambiguous passages in the Quran that you won't be able to understand just looking at the translation. That's why you have to look at the interpretation of the Quran. And there are many interpretations. As I said, each translation is an interpretation also. So there are interpretations that concentrate on the social aspect of the Quran. There are interpretations that are speaking of the spiritual aspect of the Quran, economic aspect of the Quran, psychological aspect of the Quran. So just reading the translation again is not enough, wouldn't be enough. Again, this is not just for non-Muslims, but also for non-Arab speaking Muslims.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation, sir. And I like that quote by Fethullah Gulen.
Gulen.
Yeah. He's also a fellow Turkish.
Yes, and he lives in the United States, actually, in Pennsylvania.
Okay. I just want to ask you a few questions here that popped up, and I just wrote some of them down. And I don't know if there's any chronology to these, but I'll go back to, I'll first start with one that's kind of a, what should I say, this is theological.
Okay.
All right, and I'm not a theologian,
Okay.
so, but you did use the phrase that there's no ticket to heaven a couple times.
Yes.
And that is
For
where...
for Muslims.
For Muslims, correct. I understand that. And we have a friend, he passed away this past year, and he was born and raised. Actually his given names were Umar and Abu Bakr, or Abu Bakr.
Okay.
And he, at age 25, was presented with John 5:24, where Jesus says, and there's very many similar passages, where Jesus said that, I tell you the truth, anyone who hears my word and believes on him who sent me has everlasting life. He will not come into condemnation, but he is passed from death to life. And he went back and asked his Malam, or his Imam, this is in northern Nigeria, and which is all under Sharia. And he asked his Malam, now this man died last year.
Nigeria 50-50, you know.
Pardon me?
50, it's not an Islamic country, Nigeria, you know that, right?
Well, this is northern Nigeria.
Okay.
This is very much so, yeah. In fact, he's a Fulani, or was a Fulani, and all the emirates in northern Nigeria are of Fulani. Anyway, he went back and asked his religious leader this, and was told that this is blasphemous. Only God can know.
Yes.
And so I'm saying that's just theological.
Yes.
There's an incompatibility there. Okay. But
Go ahead. Yeah, from Islamic perspective, I concur. Yes, only God knows.
Okay. So his life was changed.
Okay.
And the result of that was he had hope and assurance of salvation, and it was in Jesus. And it is exclusive in that sense. But anyway, that's a theological thing. I just want to say that's a concern. I mean, this has been revelatory. I've never read the Quran. It's been very revealing. But the question I would have is how closely did Muhammad's own life represent this? And I say that because, you know, the issue of stoning was brought up. Well, we have a great example where a woman caught in adultery was brought to Jesus, and we saw how he responded to that. You know, the forgiveness and the compassion and the word love that you use there. So that would be a question, is whether Muhammad's own life represented the kind of things that, we're seeing, the high bar
Yes.
that's represented there. Let me let you answer that one first.
For Muslims, Prophet Muhammad, he is the role model. So he is the perfect Muslim. So Muslims believe that without the Prophet Muhammad, you won't be able to understand what the Quran is saying. Again, there are many unclear and ambiguous passages. Just an example is Salat prayer, right? I just said Muslims have to pray 5 times a day. But how to pray, right? These are all coming from the Hadith, not from the Quran. So the Quran tells you most of the time what to do it, and Hadith tells you how to do it. So Hadith, one of the functions of Hadith is interpretation of the Quran. So that's why even in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, Muslims were not able to understand the Quran without the Prophet Muhammad presenting the Quran.
Okay. And are you saying that his life, an example, was representative of those high standards?
Yes,
Treating your enemies
Yes, definitely.
with grace?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
All right.
And there are a bunch of examples. For example, even the war. We have the wars, battles between Muslims and the pagans during the time of the Prophet Muhammad. And the people who died on the both sides, on the Muslim side, on the pagan side, they were counted name by name. And I can tell you there were 6 major battles between Muslims and the pagans. And the number of people who died on the both sides, that 250.
Okay. There is some part at your presentation. I mean, I don't know. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but for myself. I like that presentation as far as to try and work things out, be tolerant, be respectful, and so forth. But I'm wondering if it's irrelevant, or if it's not, what would I say, not reassuring based on what we see in actual life in terms. When you mention about there needs to be there's a lot of illiterate people and so forth, but the people that are sponsoring a lot of this, they're not necessarily poor and illiterate.
Yes.
We see examples of, certainly we think that in theory, national socialism sounds like a good thing, but we know when it was put into practice in Germany, and the talk came back of peace in our time, kind of like we can all work together. We saw where that went. We certainly think communism, it was tried by the Plymouth colony when they first landed here. It was found to be a failure. And we've seen what communism has done when it's been put into practice. I want to read you one quote. Now I'll quit with this. Do you know this name, Maajid Nawaz?
Maajid Nawaz.
He's
jihadist, they know the book?
Well, actually, from what I've seen of him and read of his stuff, he's British.
Okay.
But he's originally from
Yes,
Pakistan.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. He made this quote. I wrote this down. The fetishization, I should back up and say this was a few weeks ago when there were some attacks on women in Germany or wherever this was. There was in the news. I didn't read the articles, but there was some outcry about some, I think they were physically attacked or robbed and assaulted sexually or whatever took place there. And he was asked to respond to this because he is a Muslim. And he said the fetishization of the female body has not led, and certainly there's fetishization in every culture of female bodies, but has not led to a decrease in sexual violence in societies where women cover their entire bodies. If Taliban and ISIS-led areas are anything to go by, violence against women only increases the more women are asked to conceal and segregate themselves. This would make sense because accompanying such attitudes is the notion that women are sexual objects to be owned and controlled, not human beings to be respected and loved. And I would just add to that before you respond, because you can relate it to what the Quran actually teaches us over. That we know, well, I'm speaking for myself, as a believer of the Bible, in Scripture, it's very clear in the New Testament to us that men and women are equal in Christ, that we're told by the Apostle Paul that we are to love our wives like Christ loved the church, which was sacrificial. We're told by Peter in 1 Peter 3 that if we don't treat our wives with respect, God will not hear our prayers. So there's quite a contrast there.
Yes, definitely, there is a gap. I mean, absolutely, as I said before, and I'm saying this, I'm not saying that all Muslims are peaceful, all Muslims are good, all Muslims are following the Quran, all Muslims are following the Prophet Muhammad. There is a huge gap between what the Quran is teaching and what the Muslims are doing, okay?
What does the Quran teach?
In terms of what? Exactly the same thing what the Bible is teaching, in terms of the treatment of women, okay? Women and men are equal. They are created equal. They are different by equal, physically different being, but equal. In terms of the relationship between husband and wife, they complement each other. Man is nothing without woman. Woman is nothing without man. So this is the connection, the relationship between the husband and wife. When you look at the Quran, when you look at the Prophet Muhammad, when you look at how the Prophet Muhammad treated his wife, when you look at how the Prophet Muhammad treated the woman in his lifetime, you asked the first question, right? Whether he represented the Quran or not. You see that again, there is this strong connection between woman and the man. Of course, country like Saudi Arabia, country like the Pakistan, country like Afghanistan. I mean, you see that the women are oppressed. Women are treated very badly, right, by their husbands. But again, this is not what the Quran is teaching. And I am saying this so you have this, the woman issue, and you have this violent extremism, whatever called jihad or not. There are Muslims who are doing this, unfortunately, yes. Okay. But again, this is not this is not the majority, so this is the thing that we should know. The Muslim countries that I mentioned, 7 Muslim nations had women as the head of state. Prime Minister, President. How many do we have? Bangladesh, Turkey, and Pakistan, Benazir these are 3 examples. Prime Minister as woman. But again, we have the Afghanistan, we have the Saudi Arabia. Yes, definitely. I mean, I would say that's not Islamic at all. This is what Muslims are doing, but that's not Islamic, I would say. So that's what, yes.
So why
Yeah.
you receive, for example, a Minnesota driver's license, and the woman is covered, and they say it's because of their religion?
Completely covered. The face covered or the head covered?
Complete face is covered.
Face, no. Face, there is nothing in the Quran, there is nothing in the Hadith that says that the Muslims have to cover, Muslim women have to cover their faces. Interestingly speaking, even, let's say there are these Afghani women, they are covering whole faces, right? When they go to Hajj, when they go to Mecca for pilgrimage, they have to reveal their faces. It's an obligation, it's a rule in the Quran. So that's why there is nothing, about the covering the face. This is Afghanistan, this is their culture, this is their understanding. In Saudi Arabia, you have this guardianship that you cannot be alone. Whether your father, whether your brother, whether your son, male companion must be present with you. That's their culture, that's their understanding.
Okay, you did a good job in answering my question. I wanted to know if it tied in with the religion or whether this was politics and culture.
I would say again, there might be some passages that they interpret and saying that this is what it's about. But 99% that's about culture and custom. How they treat the woman.
Thank you.
Again, these are the countries, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan.
First off, I want to say thank you for educating us, giving us more information.
I am not educating anyone. We are all learning.
The second thing I want to say is I really appreciate the slide on the FBI statistics. I work for a counterterrorism unit, Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the vast majority of terrorism groups that our government looks at aren't based on Islamic faith. You're talking Montana Freeman, SHAC, FARC, whatever their acronym is. The ones we looked at had nothing to do with Islam. And a lot of people don't see that because the mainstream media pushes the Islam thing. Don't believe what you see on TV. Don't believe what you read on the internet. without doing some research. Because the most terroristic groups are domestic terrorists. At least that's how they're classified.
And if you ask me my personal opinion, is that in terms of the relationship between Muslims and Christians, not the politics, not the government policies, that's not the solution to me. Again, the one-on-one interaction. This is what I said, you know, if you want to know Islam, don't read the Quran, meet a Muslim, I said, one-on-one interaction, that's the key. Again, for both Muslims and Christians. They have, many Muslims, they don't know their own religion, Islam, and they have no idea what Christianity or the books that you asked in the first section, they have no idea what kind of book, you know, this Bible is, or what kind of religion this Christianity is. They have no idea.
I came for the purpose of learning more about the Muslim religion and also to help dispel some of my fears of the unknown. And so you've helped teach me some of that. And I also am coming because I am wanting to not only learn, but also to show my support and solidarity to help promote tolerance. So thank you for doing this, and I feel like you've helped me do that.
And that's a good way to end the afternoon. So thank you, Dr. Harvchi, for coming here. And I know that my eyes have been opened and made me think a lot more about the Muslim faith. And I think he deserves